That was Minimax H3. You may not have caught it, but there was something special about that clip, and I'll tell you in a moment. Minimax H3 is blowing up, and in this video, I'm going to push the dial to 11. Or 12, as it turns out. H3 is a powerhouse of a model, but as it turns out, Minimax hasn't been completely honest with us about just how much this model can do. In a previous video, I showed you how to blow past the length limitations of the H3. In this video, we'll see just how far we can push the resolution and see if the claimed 2K limit is real. And spoiler alert, it isn't. To show you that, I am again booting up the most powerful GPU in the world, the NVIDIA B300, and pushing it to its absolute limits. By the end of this video, you will see how far we can get this model if we limit the duration to just 1 second. Is it practical? Not in the slightest. But is it economical? Also no. But it is fun. Welcome to B Explains Everything. But before we unleash the beast again, let's see what a more reasonable GPU can do. In the last video on the limits of H3, I showed you how the claimed limit of 15-second clips on Minimax H3 was not entirely accurate. In fact, we started rendering a 2-minute video using the most powerful GPU in the world, the B300. That's 8 times larger than the stated limit. However, we did all that at just 0.4 megapixels of resolution. That's hardly cinema quality, so I asked myself, how far can we push the resolution before H3 gives up? Well, Minimax claims that H3 can do 2K resolution, which is cinema quality, but I don't trust them, so let's test it instead. First, the test setup. I'm going to use the RTX Pro 6000 first to show the technique. This is the same setup as for the duration limit video, so a stock H3 text-to-video workflow from Comfy UI. Since the last test, the Comfy UI workflows have changed to use turbo low-res, which isn't terribly important because that doesn't affect the resolution. However, to make things fair, when I show you the B300 later, I will use the same workflow as I used for the duration video. That ensures we have a fair comparison. And also, disclaimer up front, I won't be showing the complete rendered video, only enough to prove that it works, and the reason will become clear once we start the rendering. Enough talk, let's demo. Okay, so I have a normal Runpod setup here, and I will be using an RTX Pro 6000 because it has a large amount of VRAM. As I explained and showed in the previous video, the amount of VRAM is the real limiting factor of H3. The only difference now is that I'm not looking to get a reusable setup, so I'm skipping the network drive. That's not affecting the scale, so it shouldn't matter. It does, however, mean that I have to run the full Comfy UI upgrade and download the models. If you want to see how that's done and how you can create a reusable template on Runpod, check out my video on installing H3. I'm going to skip past those steps here, but note that I am using the Comfy UI text-to-video workflow template from inside Comfy UI. That template is slightly different from the workflow I used in the install video. What you can see is that it uses a turbo low-res, which should only affect the speed of rendering, not how large a clip we can make. Before we start fiddling, however, it's time to reveal what was so special about the video at the start. Other than that, it was really short, of course. Here, let me show you that video in Media Player Classic and see what the properties say. As you can see, this video is 5 seconds, but it is also larger than 2K. Normal 2K has a width of 2160 pixels, whereas this is closer to 3K. So how do we accomplish this? It's as simple as you think, at least if you watched the previous video, but before I show you, please hit like and subscribe on this video. It helps me and YouTube understand what you want to see, plus it helps grow my subscriber count so I can possibly get monetized videos at some point. Anyway, for making larger videos, it is as simple as increasing the resolution in the input node here. Note that the list of available resolutions maxes out at 2K. However, we can still increase this number much further. To demonstrate that, let's start a rendering for full 4K. Note that because a doubling in resolution requires 4 times as much VRAM, we are severely limited in duration. Plus, I want to make sure we don't spend too much rendering time before we see the results, so let's limit this run to 3 seconds. Is that practical? Not at all, but it does show that it is possible to exceed the 2K limit that Minimax claims. Let's start this render and make sure everything starts. Then, here is a 4K 3-second clip I made earlier. Note that even with the RTX Pro 6000 and its massive 96 GB VRAM, we are quite limited in how long a video can get when we boost the resolution. I have succeeded in making a 4K 5-second clip on the 6000, but to get really far with the resolution, we need more power. A lot more power. Fortunately, we have that. Enter the B300. If you don't know, the NVIDIA B300 is currently the largest GPU in the world. It has a massive 288 gigabytes of VRAM, twice that of its baby brother, the B200, and 3 times that of the RTX Pro 6000. That also means it has 9 times more VRAM than the 590. It is massive. On Runpod, you can rent a B300 for around $8 per hour at the time of this writing. However, you might not want to do that, and you will see why later in the video. Let's spin this monster up and see just how far it can go. This B300 has 32 Intel Xeon CPUs in addition to its insane GPU and VRAM. Once Comfy UI comes up, we need to upgrade to the latest version. Let me just click Update All, and while we are waiting, I am also going to start downloading the models to the pod in a separate tab. Then, when the update is done and the models are downloaded, let's restart Comfy UI and wait for it to come up again. Now, I am going to remove the default resolution selector because at the start of this experiment, I didn't know how far I could push this. I could use a different node, of course, but instead, I will enter the resolutions manually. We have already verified that we can do full 4K resolution, so let's skip directly to double that and see how 8K sounds to the B300. Let me copy and paste these values like so, and then, so make sure we can get this started at all, let me reduce the duration down to 2 seconds. Then, let's open the console and finally hit run to see whether Minimax H3 can go as far as 8K. While we're waiting to see if the first step starts up, remember that doubling the resolution actually means 4 times the number of pixels. From 2K to 4K, we quadruple the pixel count, and from 4K to 8K, we quadruple that again. That means that if we can start an 8K run, that is actually 16 times the limit that Minimax claims. While we are waiting for everything to start or crash horribly, let's open the web terminal so we can check the VRAM usage. Then, we can type NVIDIA-SMI to get the GPU data. As you can see here, we are only using 121 gigabytes of VRAM, which is already far more than the RTX Pro 6000 could do, but not even half of what the B300 can hold. So let's go back to Comfy and wait for the first step to start. If you remember from the previous video, once the model loads and the first step begins, it usually means that the render will complete. It's not always accurate, but at least it fails quickly rather than waiting until it is almost done with rendering to tell you it is out of memory. And now, that 0 of 20 means that the model is in memory and we can start the render. Now, if we recheck the web console, we see that we are still only using 136 gigabytes, so we have a lot of room left, even with 8K resolution. In fact, let's cancel this render and go directly to the next level. I don't think this will work, but we can try and see what happens. The next level is 16K. And if you think that is insane, you are right. That is 64 times the limit that Minimax says H3 is supposed to have. Okay, so it starts out well, there's that first step. But I'm not celebrating until I see it running for a few minutes. And of course, there it fails. Out of memory. That is somewhat expected. You can see here that it is trying to allocate more VRAM than we have. Maybe we can try with a shorter clip, just to see. Let's try 1.5 seconds. And there it is again. First step starts up. Let's check the web console to see how our memory is doing. Yeah, we're at 271 gigabytes already. I think this is going to be too much. Even if the first step starts, there's still more VRAM needed. And yes, there it is, out of memory after about a minute. That's disappointing. I was hoping we at least could get started. This B300 is burning through my credits like Claude Fable 5 on auto. Okay, last try at this resolution. Let's try just 1 second. Nice. First step starts. Let's check memory and 263 gigabytes. I still think that is too much. And yep, that failed too. It requires more than 60 gigabytes more after it has started step 1. That's more than we can release, I think, even if we tried reducing the duration to just 0.5 seconds. Okay, there's no other option now. We have to reduce the resolution. Let's try 12K. I know that's not a standard anywhere, but in my defense, neither is 16K. Okay, there we go. First step started, and if my math is mathing, we should be in the clear now. Let's check the memory usage. Yep, 182 gigabytes plus the 60 plus gigabytes once it starts up. That should put us just below the critical limit. Let's wait for a few minutes and cross our fingers if you have them. Memory usage is growing steadily. At 231 gigabytes now, I think this might work. There's a small buffer still, but I'm not sure if it is enough. Okay, now it's time to cross someone else's fingers too. We're at 270 gigabytes of 288 total. This is nerve-wracking, but I think we're in the clear now. We're at 98% of VRAM usage. I think all we have to do now is wait. And while we do, please consider using my referral code if you decide to try Runpod yourself. If you use that code, we both get a gift in the form of some free credits when you load your first $10. I understand if you cannot, but what is free and still helps is to like and subscribe and even share this video with others. All of this helps me immensely by offsetting the costs of these experiments because, well, let me show you. And here it is. The first step is complete. But holy moly, it takes a lot of time. 1 hour and 6 minutes? That means the full video, just 1 second at 12K resolution, would take almost 13 hours and cost almost $100 per second. I think not. This shows that it is possible. And as you can see here, we're steady at around 270 gigabytes of VRAM. However, I think the only thing I could do now is to shut down the pod because I have already spent a lot of money on just that first step. Let's shut it down and go over what we just did. So there you have it, another lie from Minimax, although as before, it's the type of lie I appreciate. We have just started what is probably the world's first 12K Minimax H3 clip, and although I cannot afford to finish that render, if you do, please let us know how it turned out. Of course, this is completely impractical, paying almost $100 per second, and outside of perhaps IMAX theaters, there isn't anything that can even show that resolution. And who would want to spend this effort per second of video? No, it's completely impractical at that resolution, but at least we know that we can easily go beyond the 2K limit. So, I think that other than concluding that H3 is far more powerful, flexible, and capable than we first thought, we will have to wrap up this experiment for now. What do you think? Is this an interesting experiment? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Go on. You know you want to. This has been B Explains Everything.